Well, y'all, thanks for coming. Really appreciate your time today. My name is Ben Kinney. I'm publisher of Business North Carolina magazine, and this is our annual life sciences. Lately, we've gotten really into biomanufacturing roundtable, and we really appreciate the help of the good folks at NCBIO and the North Carolina BioTech Center for partnering with us every year in terms of topics and helping us get panelists as well.
What we're looking at are where are different areas or different partners that we can collaborate with to bring in new talent. How do we advertise? To what Doug said earlier, that the pharmaceutical industry has a variety of different needs and a variety of different jobs. You don't need to be a chemist or a biologist to have a job in the industry. You can be a finance major, for example, or you could work as a mechanic. We actually have a strong need for mechanics within the industry, which people don't necessarily tie to biotech very frequently. But I think one piece that's changed is we have a lot more jobs than we do people in the area. The second piece that's changed for us is people's ways of working or expectations for what a workplace environment looks like. So coming out of the pandemic, we've learned that we can get work done in a variety of different ways, both in person as well as remote, and people not only have adapted to some level of flexibility, but now there's an expectation that you need some level of flexibility. And as businesses, to retain that top talent, we also need to adapt.
Right.
So that has definitely changed in the last year.
This is a really interesting time for I'll call it the broader pharmaceutical industry, and including biotech as part of that. For a long time, decades, they're great careers in these industries, and they had the luxury of doing what I called passive recruiting. They posted a job, they get 1,000 applicants, and you hire somebody, right? So that's a great luxury to have. And I think that has changed. And somebody alluded to it, might have been John earlier, they got to figure out a different way of recruiting. And it's no longer just, I'll just post a job on my website and I'll get more applicants than I need, and I'll be able to pick somebody who's way overqualified for the job, right? So I think that's a big transition for them. And how to actively reach populations that may not be looking at our industry is a real challenge.
I think there's two things that are really going to be vital, and one Doug touched on is they're really scaling issues. One, we really have to scale these pathways of opportunity. I'm thinking about with Securus, CSL Securus, these sites are huge and they're wonderful on the outside, but what's really amazing is what happens on the inside. But those are controlled environments. So many of the people who even live around the facilities have no idea what happens in those facilities. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. And a lot of times these are not things that you see when you're considering what's the opportunities that are in front of you. And somehow we have to figure out how to scale that more to be able to build those pipelines. The other thing that we have to think about is our workforce infrastructure has to scale to meet where our economic development growth has already gone. When we're talking about the advanced level of biopharma education, we're talking about people who can demand very high competitive salaries, given what they could do in the private market, who are training students in smaller numbers on highly expensive equipment in very unique kind of aseptic manufacturing suite environments. That's something that is very difficult to scale, and so not to just focus, but I do think some of the issues that community colleges face in terms of salaries and in terms of our ability to expand to meet the jobs that we're already in this core seeing happening is going to be key. And what happens there is we have to be able to scale our workforce development infrastructure to meet where our economic development success has already gone.
So part of the Build Back Better is also internships and apprenticeships. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get people placed so they kind of can see it, so they know what it feels like, that's a really big first step, I think, to getting people connected to the industry and understanding what the opportunities are. The Build Back Better Challenge has opportunities for both internships and apprenticeships, and through the bio work and some of the things, there's a couple of programs that you all do. So I'm confident we can increase the diversity and bring people that have historically not seen themselves in science. I don't think the van is still out there, but the United Way has built a van that Novozymes outfitted, which is just a small learning lab that you take to different schools to show people things that they can do and to introduce them to science at an earlier age. So I think that's another part, is getting people interested in science at an earlier age. A long time ago, when I was looking at some other stuff, there was a study done that said people choose nursing as a career by the 3rd grade. So a lot of people don't do that, and we need to find those people who are maybe coming up in their their high school years and are looking for where they're going to go next. Mm-hmm. If we can find a way to connect to those, that helps build this pipeline that we need. So.
And for me, I think it comes down to accessibility and operating from a place of inclusion. And in terms of accessibility, we could be talking about access to high-tech equipment, like Scott mentioned earlier. And at Central Carolina, we're working to build our capacity. Right now, we're working with our partners at the Capstone Center and doing some training that we don't currently have the capacity to do. But the Magneti Morelli auto manufacturing place will now become the more center for biotech solutions and advanced manufacturing. So not only will we have a place for biotechnology to live, we'll also have a place to train all of the different roles, like maintenance technicians you mentioned earlier. Automation technicians are another role that we'll have there. So having access to that technology and also access to the training programs. We offer our training programs in so many different formats. Because Sanford is a historically manufacturing area, I've got to be able to respond to a rotating manufacturing shift schedule so that people can have access to these training programs, whether they're an adult looking to transition, whether they work at Securus and are looking to further their education. They need to actually be able to have that as an option for them in order to move forward. Night classes, morning classes, having an attitude of inclusion so that you can be flexible as opposed to being rigid, which excludes people.
So our university, it's about 40% of the student population is either underrepresented or underserved populations. And so we have the students there. And so it's a matter of helping them to succeed. And so we do this in a number of ways. First of all, in our intro courses, we have lots of support for the students. We have active learning classrooms, we have tutoring, we have peer leaders, lots of support for our students. And then again, I keep going back to undergraduate research, but it's such an impactful thing. It's so impactful, and it shows students, you can contribute to science. You can be doing this. I used to love to tell students, you're the only person in the world who's made this compound. And they're just so excited about it, because it's true. But one issue with undergraduate research is that the traditional way of doing it isn't necessarily scalable for a university of 30,000 students, 24,000 undergraduates. So how do you do that? And so we're addressing that as well. So we have some courses that are called course-based undergraduate research experiences. So instead of maybe having more of a traditional lab, the students as a class are working on a research project together. So it's one instructor handling this, it's one particular project. In some of the courses, the instructors actually ask the students, so what research do you want to do? And they actually design the course around the type of project that the students want to do.
Yeah, the only other thing, there's a lot of classic discussions, and most companies are dealing with DEI in their own way. And I think creating a diverse and inclusive environment within your company, truly inclusive, is contagious, right? So then it will get out in the community if you're not, or if you will. So that'll help you with your recruiting process. But there's also a couple barriers, and Scott touched on one from a different. But transportation is a barrier to some, and so is childcare. And I think that there's an opportunity in those two areas for public-private partnerships and how to deal with that. If we're really serious about getting into those communities and providing them those opportunities, I think we can deal with that, and it's not that complex. I don't think.